Welcome to FCNYC. My name is Ben Chan, and I'm here with Aris Pina. We do the Punch Zone for HBO Boxing, and we're the sexiest statisticians in boxing. And we've got some fights to talk about, but let's start off with last weekend's fight, the rematch between Orlando Salido and Juanma Lopez. What a fight.
What a fight, exactly. I mean, it was an amazing fight, 10 times better than the first one. The first one was an amazing fight as well, but this one just took it to another level. I mean, that ninth round, you can make comparisons to Corrales-Castillo, Gotti Ward, Hagler-Hearns. I mean, that's one of the rounds that's going to end up in the history book. Even though it's only March, that's a depth round 9 is easily going to be the round of the year. And Orlando Salido, what a road warrior. He's come full circle. He had a tough upbringing in his career, turned pro at 15 years old. Had a string of losses, and since then he's only lost twice while leading off a bunch of wins, including 2 huge wins over Juan Manuel Lopez. And now, right now, Salido is the main at featherweight, depending on where, Yuriorkis Gamboa decides to go.
Yeah, I thought the fight started off kind of slow. I thought around maybe the 4th round was when it started to heat up. And to me, Juanma he just didn't look right.
He looked how he did the first fight. Look, he was in tremendous shape. You got to give him that. He was in a lot better shape than he was the first fight. But Juanma Lopez is what he is. He's a guy that can't block right hands, and his defense is always going to be a little shoddy. So in that retrospect, he's going to make for exciting, great fights, like he did with the two fights with Salido. Mm-hmm. But he's always going to have that vulnerability, and
he's not going to have a very long career.
Exactly. If you keep on pushing him hard enough, eventually he might have to fold and start talking gibberish at the end of his fights like he did at this one.
Right. And the 9th round, incredible round. I thought, though, even though there was back and forth action, I thought Salido fairly dominated that round.
Salido dominated most of the fight. He's a very tricky fighter. He has underrated skills as it comes to it. Most people just think of him as a brawler and stuff like that, but he's very cagey in how he fights.
Right.
He has a sneaky right hand, nice left hook, good defense. He knows how to move his way in and take up the space. Excellent fighter. Tough, hard out for anyone out there. When people try to say, with him beating Juanma Lopez twice, Gamboa beating Salido, Gamboa would have destroyed Juanma Lopez. I don't think that would have been the case. I mean, styles make fights. It's just that Salido's style is just all wrong for Lopez.
Right. And then Salido coming out in the beginning of the 10th round and just knocking out Juanma Lopez, which Lopez was angry about it at first, but...
when you get rocked in the head a bunch of times, you don't really know what you're saying at the end of a fight either.
But he did apologize the next day and relent, even though
the WBO still is gonna...
Right, which is
understandable. They should.
Which is understandable, but it kind of means nothing in terms of they'll drop him from the rankings. So what?
Yeah, no. There's other fights from
right.
What are the belts then nowadays? Anyways, they're all meaningless. So
right, but the other thing that I want to talk about, and this kind of mars the fight a little bit in my mind, is the judging. On the 3 judges scorecard, at the time of the stoppage, 1 judge had it a draw, and the 2 other judges had Juan Manuel Lopez ahead. I don't think anybody watching that fight had first of all, I don't think anybody had it a draw, and I don't think anybody had Juan Manuel Lopez ahead. I
had Salido ahead by about 3 points. I mean, Lopez was very competitive. He shaded a few rounds. He dropped Salido very hard in the 5th round, which a lot of people forget about.
He did, but that was to me, even when he dropped him in the 10th round, that was a round that Salido was winning.
No, he was winning.
And that was a 10-9 round for Salido. That's how I scored it. But even if you scored that round 10-8 and gave it to Juanma Lopez,
no, Salido was still ahead in the fight, and you know what? That whole fight would have been completely marred if the fight ended up going to the scorecards, because the way it was going, if Juanma was never knocked down, it probably would have been a draw or a split decision for Juanma.
And that would have been
a terror, a travesty, an absolute travesty. But luckily, Salido brought his own judges to the ring, which was his left hand and his right hand, and took care of business. Right. So instead of having any controversy, you know what? We still had a great fight with a conclusive winner.
Right, and
there's no one more deserving than Orlando Salido.
Right.
Salido.
Those 3 judges in Puerto Rico, they're lucky that they're not the WTF moment, which I'll talk about later on, involving a certain Cuban fighter. But before we do that, let's talk about this weekend's fight on HBO, which pits middleweight champion Sergio Martinez versus Matthew Macklin, the real middleweight champion of the world, Sergio Martinez.
Definitely. Martinez is in tough. This isn't Darren Barker who's going to be fighting. Matthew Macklin is a very credible contender, one of the top middleweight contenders in the world. He came off, he dominated Felix Sturm in that fight. I don't know what the judges was thinking, but then again, it's Germany. Mm-hmm. Dominated Felix Sturm on, what was it, a draw?
Yeah.
And came away with a draw, which, a fight he should have easily won. And he is deserving. I mean, when it comes down to it, there's the champions, then you have to look at some of the contenders. You have Quillen, you have a few other guys. Andy Lee's in the mix. But Matthew Macklin, Irishman, fighting out of Great Britain, fighting out of England. He's, Irish descent, fighting on St. Patrick's Day. The Garden, I was at there, actually, the media day today, the workout at Modell's in Times Square, and I was talking to Ron Rizzo and the matchmaker for DBE, Joe Chiambo, and they both said they're basically going to have a sellout by fight night. So this is going to be a very lively atmosphere, March 17th, this weekend.
In case you're not familiar with Macklin, let me just give you some statistics from some copybox statistics from his last fight versus Felix Strum. He threw 1,102 punches. That's I think a record for middleweights, and he outlanded Strum 314 to 187 in that overall, and then in power punches he outlanded Strum 255 to 111. So I don't know how he didn't get the decision in that fight.
Well, but they were in Germany.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of people beat up Sven Otke, but did they ever get the decision against him?
Right. But this is not a walkover fight for Martinez at all.
No, he needs to be on his A game. He didn't look that great in his last fight. Remember when he fought Darren Barker? He struggled at times, a couple of times. He was always in control, but he just didn't look the same that he was when he fought Zinderick, when he fought Paul Williams, Kelly Pavlik, and so on. Yeah, he needs to be on his A game against a guy like Macklin.
Well, he is 37 years old.
He is, and his style is incorporate a lot of agility, a lot of movement, quick twitch reflexes also, which isn't really conclusive for a guy his age.
Right, but he's a young 37. He hasn't had a lot of wear and tear. So this is a fight that you should watch. It's going to be
the undercard's going to be great also.
What's happening on the undercard?
We have Donovan the Bomb George against the undefeated Edwin Rodriguez, both super middleweights. George comes to fight face first, right in there, will brawl with you to the end, has tremendous power, very exciting. Edwin Rodriguez, decorated amateur, undefeated, comes from the New England area. Lou DeBell has built him up very well. He's had a number of appearances on Showbox, one of the top young super middleweight contenders in the world. These two going at it's guaranteed fireworks, because Rodriguez, even though he has a little bit more skill than Donovan George, he still knows how to sit down and slug it out like he did in his last fight with Will Rosinski. Great fight, great undercard fight, looking forward to it.
Okay, so 10 o'clock, HBO on Saturday, tune in. And now let's talk about some of the news in boxing, which there is a lot of.
Where is Yuriorkis Gamboa?
Right, that is the WTF moment of this episode. WTF Yuriorkis Gamboa. For those of you not familiar with the situation, he had agreed to a fight with Brandon Rios, and this was a risk for Gamboa. Moving up in weight, Rios is the guy at 140, 135, and this is a legit fight, and this was a fight a lot of people were looking forward to because this promised to be an action fight. And they started doing the press tour, and
Gamboa never showed up to either one.
Twice. And the rumor is that Floyd's man is whispering in Gamboa's ear, and that Gamboa is going to jump ship to Golden Boy, and now the fight gets canceled.
Well, that's what they were saying. You're not really sure if that was the exact cause. The rumor started because Gamboa was seen at Floyd Mayweather's gym working out in Vegas when he was supposed to be in Miami for the press conference. That is a red flag. You have to give it for that. Yes. But Gamboa tried to say that there was contractual issues that he never really agreed to, and other issues here and there. And still, no one's really seen them. This is just stuff that's been told to his representatives. And when it comes down to it, that's very unprofessional the way he pulled that off. If you do agree to a fight and you have everything in writing, usually the fight is signed a little bit later on after everything is contractually obliged. Right. And Gamboa just said to hell with it. And you know what? You're screwing the fans on that end. You're screwing Brandon Rios. You're screwing HBO. You're screwing the whole world that was looking forward to a tremendous fight, one of the biggest fights of the first part of the year, and basically you're cutting it out. You know what? If I was HBO, they need to make an example out of him and tell him, something, you're not allowed back on our network anymore. It really should be the way it is. And Rios is going to keep the date. He's going to fight somebody else that not a lot of people have heard of, and it's going to be an easier fight for Rios because it's... Well, we don't know either. I mean, Rios struggled so much to make 135 his last fight. That's what made this so interesting. Can Gamboa put on the proper weight and still maintain the speed and explosiveness? And can Rios boil down to 135 one more time? Now, the drama is not going to be as much there because Rios has to fight a guy that isn't the caliber of Gamboa, but Rios is all action nevertheless, so it should be good.
Right. It's always a joy to watch a Rios fight for however long his career lasts.
Exactly.
And the Manny Pacquiao is in the news, this time for some of the same reasons that Floyd Mayweather has been in the news, surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly for those of you who have heard the stories about Pacquiao's gambling habits and his cockfighting habits. He has been charged in the Philippines with tax evasion. the same thing that Floyd Mayweather has been accused of, and later he was charged with harboring a fugitive in his mansion. So.
Manny's gonna be Manny. You know, everyone thinks of him when he's portrayed on television as a saint. He obviously is not. If you really get to know Manny, the way and you talk to some people on the inside, Manny's not a saint. Yeah, he's a good guy, but he's definitely not perfect.
Right. He's not Manny Pacquiao. He's a nice guy.
He is a nice guy, but he still acts like a kid sometimes in some regards.
Right. Especially when it comes to paying his taxes.
Yes, and holding in people, fugitives, and all that. And there are other people there that try to play the double standard. Well, if Mayweather, had this on him, everyone would be ripping apart Manny Pacquiao, this and that. Look, Mayweather has his issues, but Mayweather makes them very public and makes himself look very stupid in doing them. Manny Pacquiao has his issues, and they come to fruition through other means. And yeah, he looks stupid himself doing it. Look, nobody's perfect. It happens.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so
just concentrate on their fighting career. Unless they do something drastically really dumb, like Mayweather beating up a woman outside, then you can,
Well, hopefully this doesn't distract Pacquiao as he's preparing to fight Tim Bradley, because this.
Well, it could. Tim Bradley's no gimme. There's no walkover. Tim Bradley is definitely no gimme, and he has a style that can give Pacquiao fits.
Mm-hmm. And our last bit of news is that our friend of the show, a former guest, Pete Quillen, will be fighting Winky Wright, but not on the Mayweather Cotto undercard like first announced. They're going to be fighting on May 26th on Showtime on the Tarver Latif Coyote fight.
I mean, it's a good fight for Peter Quillen. We'll have to see how much Winky Wright has left. I mean, I'm sure Wright still has enough experience to last and ring savvy to last a long time, but Quillen's the up-and-coming guy. He's very explosive. He came off with a tremendous win in his last fight against Craig McQuillan on HBO, and this is the biggest fight of his career. I know he's highly motivated for it. I talked to him a little bit before. He said he can't wait for this fight. He's pumped. He's ready to put it on. Winky Wright's a potential Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. Had a tremendous career. And Winky Wright's representatives actually said, something, this is great for Wright because this is not a tune-up fight. He's fighting a top contender, but Peter Quillen's best opponent, they said, is not the caliber of Winky Wright's worst opponent. So it's a good fight, but Winky Wright's been out of the ring for almost 3 years, so this should be a win for Pete.
Right, and Winky does bring a good name to the table.
He does, but in his last fight against Paul Williams, he was whitewashed, and he's taken a long time since then, so.
And for me, one of the things, and this doesn't raise a red flag, but a yellow flag, is with the new regime taking over at Showtime and their connection to Al Heyman, and when you see that Ashita being fed to Paul Williams, and then now Jermaine Taylor is going to be back on Showtime.
And also Gary Stark is getting not Gary Stark, excuse me, Gary Russell Jr. getting his appearances on HBO and on Showtime and others. Yeah, people are going to start wondering again, maybe this is the Heyman bandwagon jumping on. Who knows?
It's just something to watch out for.
Well, we'll just see, we'll see how the trend is going to be. A lot of fights that were on HBO last year and a lot of fighters that were appearing on HBO last year now all of a sudden are getting more Showtime dates. Will it be a trend? I mean, as long as they produce good fights, I can care less who's going to be on it.
Right.
But if it's going to be the getting paid maximum money, fighting the lowest reward type guys, then you have room to complain.
Right, and that's something that I've always looked to Showtime. They might not have the glitz and the glamour as HBO or get the attention, but they've always had generally really good matchups.
They do. It's just found it interesting, though, when Paul Williams and Ashita was made, HBO said no to that, Showtime picked it up right away.
Right. Okay, so make of that what you will. We're watching you, Showtime. And thanks for watching Fight CNYC. Thank you, Aris, and we'll see you next week.